Going off of my previous video, you have been mostly updated on regards to my progress with my game, though I feel that I should do this video to quickly go over aspects of the game that I feel may not get added by the end of the assignment, as there are some aspects that I wish I could work on, though I don't feel like I could with the time remaining that I have. The problems that I have aren't necessarily going to be big problems. They're more of a personal thing for what I feel the game would be. And the best way to showcase things is with the game being shown in the background. As most of may have noticed is the content missing section on my build. I of course note down that there are aspects of the game that will be missing, and as the biggest one notes down will be story. Now, the story of my game is kind of explained within my posts, though I feel that I would want to in the future ensure that the game has a fully planned story, and I feel that with the story that I have, I wouldn't say that I've fully planned everything just yet, and that is why I think that the story won't be implemented just yet. However, the positivity, I'd say that my game so far is very near completion to what I feel would be great for my assignment. I've got many things sorted out that I felt would be a great thing for me to learn for Unity for the sake of my future. For example, the options menu. This aspect was one of the hardest ones for me to work on because I'd never done it before, and while there were some occasional YouTube videos, brackies and such, I didn't feel like they helped as much as I would like. So I went ahead and I used those to help me learn how to create a options menu, of course. So we have things like the resolution, which won't affect this current part, but in the build it does. You've got full screen, you've got graphics. Volume is an aspect that isn't really touched on just yet because of how there is no audio currently in the game, though mouse sensitivity is the newest feature. This allows us to adjust the sensitivity of the mouse within the game, and the reason why it's new is that it's been added to my options menu, because if I were to slide this across, we now have it so that this saves across scenes. Also, other bonus thing is that, as you may have noticed, the TV was off. Thanks to recent feedback, we have thought that it would be better for my game to have a thing so that the TV is off during the start of the build and all that. For a couple of reasons. One, because of a big bug that always annoyed me during playtests. For instance, if I were to move my mouse around and such, you see that I can zoom in. In the previous builds of the game, this would have a bug so that while loading a level, if you zoom in while loading, the raycast likes to move out of this square box, causing it so that you cannot hold E anymore to look away from the TV. I have since fixed this bug, and as far as I know, it is fully fixed, though of course future testing will always prove me wrong. Other aspects of the game that is being worked on and I'd say is near complete is the art. I am very proud of the work I have done for almost all the art. Of course, barring the Unity Asset Store, living room, and the tile sprites for the terrain of my 2D game. But if I were to work on this game myself, I would definitely spend the extra time working on these, because now that the game's more in a complete state, I've come to notice that these aren't that in-depth of models. The only one that I'd say is extreme is the kitchen, mainly because of the amount of assets that would be made. Again, these things were added because of my belief of time. I believed that I would not have the time to even get as far as I have now. But I am happy to say that I am much further than I thought I would be. If I were to just go over to the end of the level, we can see the flag is, of course, now here. And other aspects that I want to work on is audio. You, of course, heard I haven't got the volume and all that sorted out. That is because my game doesn't even have audio just yet. I want to add aspects of audio like music and sound effects for things like shooting this weapon, which also is another bonus thing. As you can see, we have the 3D model for the gun, which was inspired by my previous pixel art of my gun from Hitman Protocol back in Rapid, which I basically went onto Magic of Voxel and created a 3D version of the gun and exported it to Unity. Other things is, of course, the enemy. You may have noticed it in my previous videos, and this aspect took 3 hours to work on because of how in-depth it was to turn that 2D sprite into a 3D object. To the point that after the 3 hours, I had felt like I couldn't really work on it even more because I had so many other things to do. That is why, as you probably have noticed from the knife, what I've done is I did one of the 4 normal frames of the animation, and I just went ahead and created a script that flips the z-axis in an interval so that the enemy may go ahead and act like he's running. As much as I would like to do the other animation frames, I feel like this is a great way to quickly do it so that I don't have to work on so I can work on other things. Now, of course, we now have everything working with the enemies. We have the sprite flipping red. We have the AI mostly working. There were a couple of things to note with the AI. I had to change aspects of its size, of course, and because of that, my AI bake pathing was messed around and did not feel great. And as you can see here, there was originally an enemy on this platform, and because of this new change, I could not keep them on here because they would just stay still. I tried seeing if I could move them here, but as you noticed, it appears to be causing issues with the other enemy, because if I get rid of this, they of course work. Other aspects that I've been changing is how I go about the design of the exit ways. I will be adding these boarded up designs to the entrance so that it's harder for players to get lost in that's not the exit, because they do pretty much look identical, of course. Maybe I could add signs and such, but that's just a thing for future me to think about for making the experience better. Now, the other thing is that when you do enter here, before you would normally just stay next to the wall, but now I have it so that it teleports you in and disables your controls. The other thing with this TV turning on aspect is that you can press Q to instantly turn the TV on if you do not want to wait the 5 seconds it would take to turn on. And another aspect that's been worked on are these glitches. I've got a simple sprite worked out for them, and I've been placing them in my levels now. And if I go over to my dream sequence, we can of course see them. From what I've gathered from my playtest sessions, the playtesters have been giving me any updates on bugs and such that they find, and I try to fix them, of course, as well as any bonus features they want me to work on, such as the TV turning on after a certain amount of time instead of just being on in the first place. And after all the work that I've done, I'd say that the playtesters that I've got currently are happy with what I have, and I'll be hopeful that the final playthrough of the game will be an improvement in any way. Because as much as I personally am happy with what I have, I always still think that there's stuff to improve on. But as you can see here, we have these sprites shown within this cracked wall, and as most may have noticed from my previous play sessions, there was always a problem with getting the player to know about the crack in the wall in the dreams, as most didn't notice it. I've gone ahead and made it more obvious by doing the glitch effects and such, but I will likely be improving it even further. Other aspects that were a slight problem to me were with jumping on these slopes, because there was no way for the player to be able to jump on these slopes originally, which was a strange problem, and turns out the problem was a sphere radius not being large enough to see it. And while that is technically the answer, I couldn't just increase it. I had to change it to being a box and size it enough so that it goes as long as the player's size, but still keeping a thin connection so we don't get problems where you just stick to the ground. As much as it's kind of been fixed, the problem still can happen. Like, as you can probably notice, I'm spamming jump, and occasionally I don't jump on the slopes. However, that's a small problem, and I'll just have to live with it. As you can see, more of the glitches have been added across the scenes, and one of the bigger forms of feedback I've been given about the game is how easy it is to avoid the enemies. And while I personally would like to make it harder, I felt that for the sake of the project, it would just be better for me to just leave it as what it is, because not all players are like my playtesters and me, which are more experienced in platformers and such. And if I were to do a final build of the game, I would definitely make things different. For example, one of the biggest things that I would want to change is with the levels itself, because one of the biggest things in that I had planned would be a digital clock to be besides the TV in the living room sequences, and that would basically be the clock to tell how long you'd be playing for. Of course, you'd be able to press a button to just go to bed instead, but aspects like level choosing, having a thing so that when you start the game, you play level 1 and you unlock the others, but while unlocking new ones, you can choose to go to the previous ones, and the idea would be that those previous ones would be more and more broken. And while I have captured in a sense, of course, that things do change, I haven't got it to that point. So for the final point of the game, I would definitely be making it like that. But as you can see around us, there are enemies from the game walking around, and the lights are flickering and such. While this could be a problem for certain players with epilepsy, and same with the third dream sequence that was before, having a warpy VFX to it, I think for the sake of just this indie project, I would likely leave it at a warning for now. And if I were to develop the game further myself, I would definitely make it less of a headache. Like, change the way the lights are flashing so that it's not just a constant flicker, and instead have it be more like a random flicker effect, just to reduce the risk in any way. And as you can see, this level currently is under construction, and this is one of the final 2 levels that I will be I'm working on. And as you can see from previous videos, this is where my 2D sprites of the bully, businessman, and mother are located. Currently, there is a weird bug where you can just randomly see this text, which I don't exactly know the reason, but I'll definitely be looking into it to figure out the problem. And speaking of this level, things with this level would be that these characters would have a collision, and when the player touches the collision will cause a sound clip to play. And these sound clips would basically play audio of these characters saying stuff that the main player likes to want to forget and reject from his memory. And these, of course, are here to help bring that in and make him remember all the worst aspects of his life that had happened, of course. Just a hint into aspects of the story that I'll be working on, of course. However, if we go down the hole, we can enter the final variant, which, as you may notice, the holdie is still there, which is likely just because I forgot to add it in my list of arrays. But as you also noticed, things are a lot more different. The game is all over the place in the living room, and I feel that this is going to be where players are most confused, mainly because the story isn't there. And for now, I'm just going to have to live with that, because I don't think that I'll be able to get this to be explained just yet, and they'll just have to live with it. However, if I make it through this level, we can go ahead and we can make it to the end, which would be the living room again. And players will be able to wander around the living room, do whatever they want. They can't do anything until they notice that they can press E on the door and enter through. And this is an aspect that I really like for my project, and I don't feel like I need to change too much. Now, the aspect that I do want to change is audio for this scene, because, as you may notice, the enemies are fluctuating between their sprites and the sprites of the memories that he wants to regress, as well as the gunmen's. Now, each enemy in this level have a different variance on which ones they'll fluctuate to. And the main point of this scene would be that it gets louder and louder, and it's just all those lines being repeated over and over to the player's head, causing them to get distressed. As you may have noticed from the distance, we of course now have an actual sprite for the door, which is also in the 2D sections of the game. And as you may notice that they were there too. Now, currently, there is this weird bug. If you stand here, you would for some reason get stuck, and you can't jump or anything. Now, I don't exactly know why this is, but sometimes you can avoid it, sometimes you can't. So I'll definitely be looking into this, because this is like the biggest problem by far, because it will definitely not let you reach the final level. Which is fine anyway for now, because the final level isn't built in any way, so it's a perfect point for me to stop. Anyway, I believe that should be it. Sorry that this is a long video, but I felt like I had to go over everything that I feel with the game. As to sum it up, I'm proud with what I've got, and I think it will be great for the project, though I always feel the game deserves more, and that's why I will definitely try to make this game even further after my assignments. Anyways, that'll be all for this video, and I'll be sure to update things and of course upload my GDD soon to showcase everything. Anyways,